For our next session, somebody's going to talk to us about our experiences, exposures, and environment. It's called Cause and Effect. We have the esteemed Dr. Eric Flinaw, Associate Professor and Vice Chair of Medicine at Grady Hospital, as part of the GHS faculty. The good doctor has performed grant-funded and award-winning research, published in peer-reviewed journals, and served on multiple hospital committees. We also wish to recognize our gold sponsor, Gilead, for their generous support of this session. And now, let's give a big round of applause for Dr. Eric Flinaw.
Good morning. So I have the task of trying to give you in a few minutes the good understanding of lung cancer, exactly what it is, the risk factors, and why it's worse for African Americans. I'm going to keep moving because I warned them I am notorious for running over. And so we want to talk about lung cancer disparities. And when people hear disparities, the first thing they think of is, well, now the word is what, DEI, but they think about racism. But it's not all racism. When we think about these disparities within the healthcare system, there's a few things we have to separate to. We have to make differences between what is health and what is health care. And when we talk about health, we're talking about the environmental factors that we are either exposed to or that we actually do to ourselves. And this could be smoking, this could be in the areas that you live in, whether you're living next to pollution, and all these, and how they impact that specific health of our people. And then the other is the biology, because we know not everybody is the same. And not everybody, like everybody, but not every person's body is the same. It reacts differently to different exposures. And then we have to look at health care. And healthcare and what's available or what we actually seek out in terms of our own health care. And this is looking at whether or not we have the opportunity for early detection of lung cancer, or if there's other factors that we have to go through or challenge, or that we're challenged with to get to the diagnosis that we need to know. So I found that it's often helpful to tell exactly what is lung cancer. And when we talk about lung cancer, a lot of people think you can catch it. It's something that's given to you, whatever. The reality is that you have a normal cell, and for some reason, it changes its genetics of that cell. And it just makes it start multiplying, and it multiplies out of control. And so one cell goes to two cells go to 4 cells, and then you have a cancer. And the thing that makes it cancerous is it takes over other parts of the body, it takes over the organ where it started. And that's basically cancer. Now that one cell, it could be a breast cell, it could be a prostate cell, it could be a colon cell. For this talk, it just happens to be lung cell, okay? So when we talk about lung cancer, there's 2 basic types. Okay, and if you've known people that have ever gone through this, or you've gone through it yourself, they'll talk about the 2 main cell types. Now, we as doctors, we're not really good at naming things, okay? So there is one type that has very small cells, okay? And they group together. If we actually look at it underneath the microscope, each of the little purple dots here, that's a cancer cell, okay? And those cells are smaller than the other type, which is non-small cells. So we didn't name it too well, right? But they're much larger. Each one of the purple dots is the cancer there. Well, the small cell, they grow faster, they spread faster. They're more than, they have a higher relationship to smoking, okay? Smoking is a cause for all cancers, but this is really linked to it, okay? And there's 2 types. It's either in one spot, which we call limited, or it's extensive where it's spread all over. And so when we get that diagnosis and we know it spreads fast and we know it's rapid growing, we have to move fast through our healthcare system to get it treated. The other type, the non-small cell cancer, they're much larger, they grow slower. There's more causes to it, linked to it, but still smoking is the number 1, okay? And when we stage them, that's when we can say, okay, it's local, it's only in one spot. Or it might be in one spot and with lymph nodes where it's regional, or that it's spread to other places. So as we go through this, I just want you to keep those in mind. But we have to ask, okay, why specifically is lung cancer bad for blacks? And I want to give you this, this charting here. And I know I can't like reach over there. So the top level here is for this coming year, the estimated new cases that we expect to see of all the types of cancers that affect African Americans. So specifically for African Americans. And at the bottom, this is the amount of deaths we'll see from each of the cancers, okay? So I want to give you an idea here. If you look, number one for men is going to be prostate cancer. We expect to see about 41,000 new diagnoses of prostate cancer. Number two is lung cancer, and it's 13. So prostate cancer about 3 times as much over lung cancer. But if we ask what is it that's exactly going to kill people, it's going to be lung. It's going to be number one. So what does this tell you? That it's more aggressive than African Americans. Even if you have 3 times as much of one type of cancer, this is going to kill more, and men especially. And for women, equally as bad. 3 times as much breast cancer we expect to see this year. But again, now the numbers match, but if I were a betting person, and good I think I didn't bet on the Super Bowl, if I were a betting person, I would have said if there's 3 times as much lung cancer as breast cancer, that it should extremely outweigh the number of deaths. But no, lung cancer gets a really close second in there. So this is telling us that that behavior of that cancer is different in African Americans. And what it means with respect to health and healthcare is we know here in the United States, blacks have higher death rates despite smoking equally as other races. I want you to keep that in mind because we know smoking is the number one cause, but there's higher death rates even though we may smoke as much or even less as other races. Okay? We're less likely to receive screening, we're more likely to be diagnosed at a later stage, and less likely to have treatment. Okay? So think about, because those are the big things that impact your survival, and we'll go through these. Okay, so let's take the health part of it, right? And these are the environmental exposures and the biology, or that relationship. So exposures, and we know the common causes of lung cancers. Number one is smoking here in the United States. About 95% of all lung cancers are related to smoking. Here's the thing, radon is number 2. Now, how many are familiar with radon? Okay, for those that are not familiar with radon, radon is a radioactive breakdown of uranium that is released out of the soil and rocks, especially where you have a lot of granite or mines that are around, perhaps Stone Mountain. Okay? Okay. And it is so prevalent here in Georgia that I think you're still required, if you buy a house, you have to have it tested for radon? Okay. All right. Do you know in Georgia, of all the tests that are done on the houses, about 20%, 1 in 5, are above the EPA's recommended guidelines for safety. Now, the neighborhoods, the people selling these houses, they know this data. Who do you think are buying these houses? Right? Okay. So this is something, if you find, and we were in a church in Alabama, and they were saying, oh yeah, this person, they had lung cancer, this person, they had lung cancer, they never smoked or whatever else. Found out that the church, even the ground they were built on, it was on top of an old mine. It said every one of your houses need to be tested for radon. And then there's other things, there's asbestos, there's pollution, there's chemical factories, but not even that. We're starting to see more people who have never smoked. Just because they have lungs, you're still at risk of developing lung cancer. Okay, but very specifically, now let's take a look at why it's more and how much more devastating it is for African Americans versus other races. And so in the green section here, I'm giving you the incidence rates of lung cancer, and I'm comparing it African Americans we have whites, and we have Native Americans. Okay, so this is the rates. It's per 100,000, but just look at the numbers, 74, 64, and 49. So this is telling us that African Americans about 10 points higher than whites in developing lung cancer, and about 20 points higher than Native Americans or Alaskans. So now let's look at the smoking incidence. For the same period of time, the prevalence of smoking, African Americans, for men, women, 25% of men were smoking, 18% women, versus whites, 23 and 20%. So these are about the same. But look at this, go back to this difference now, 10 points higher. And then if you take Native Americans, they're almost smoking twice as much, right? But it's 20 points lower. So I'm not going back and almost 30 points lower than African Americans. So I'm not going back and telling them, oh, it's okay to smoke, right? You don't do that. But what does this tell you? This tells you that there's something about the genetics that makes African Americans more susceptible to the bad effects of tobacco smoke, right? And that's what's developing the lung cancer. And that's what you take away from that, okay? So we get to that, and we got to think about environmental and exposures and what actually we are exposing ourselves to and what we are allowing ourselves to be exposed to as just socially acceptable. And now that you know it impacts us worse, we need to make a difference with that. So I've learned a long time ago, working at Grady here 24 years, I've learned a long time ago that I don't just have to ask, how much do you smoke? And when you started smoking, I have to ask, what do you smoke? Right? Okay. Y'all know where I'm coming with that. So I'm going to show you a difference here. Yeah, so let's talk about that. So I'm going to give you something. You'll hear me talk about nicotine, okay? Nicotine isn't what's causing cancer. I'm just going to tell you that. Nicotine is what has you addicted, right? Nicotine, if it were a new drug coming out on the market today, the FDA would have a big problem with it, right? Because it's only the other two things that are more addictive are cocaine and heroin than that, right? But it's been ingrained in politics and money and whatever else, so it gets a pass. But it is tightly regulated, so every cigarette has about 8 milligrams of nicotine in it. So we can judge and we can take care. Because I had a patient, he's 20-something years old, 29 years old, he has stage 4 lung cancer. I said, how much do you smoke? He said, Doc, I only smoke about 4 a day. I said, really? I said, 4 what? He said, 4 Black and Milds. I said, oh, okay, the small cigarettes. So those small cigars. You know, each Black and Mild has about 100 milligrams of nicotine in it. So if you take the equivalent of what you're inhaling there, that's about 12 cigarettes. You're smoking over half a pack. So you know you're like a 2-pack a day smoker. Okay? And for the other ones, the other people that smoke, oh yeah, it's great, you know, we're going to go out and smoke at the cigar bar and do whatever else, Yeah, 1 cigar, about 200 milligrams. Okay? That's a pack. That's a pack. Okay. We've seen this coming up, and this is what has me really concerned, is you have all these, you know, the pods and the e-cigarettes and whatever else. So we know a pack of cigarettes, a pack is about 20 cigarettes, okay? All these pods that are coming out, they're putting more and more and more nicotine in, and you know that they've actually been marketing to the young kids, right, with the flavors, right? Because they know in that developing mind, which the kids, you know, our minds develop from when we're born, and keep growing and then incorporating things until you're about 25. So if you get them started with an addictive substance at a young age and it becomes incorporated into that growing mind that they're addicted and they'll be hooked on it, right? So these pods, you can look to see exactly the equivalent of nicotine that are in each one of them, okay? And they'll go through these, you'll see the big plumes of smoke coming out. You'll see it, whatever else. The problem is, especially with the young ones, is what happens when they can't afford these anymore. They're going to go out and just buy cigarettes, okay? And I'm really concerned about the menthol, really. And this is a whole nother topic, right? Because what it's trying to do is make it smoother, easier for you to smoke these things. I'll get this next. All right. The hookah bars. Okay. So one session of the hookah bars is more harmful than smoking a pack of cigarettes. So let's get this. So you've seen these places, they're up everywhere, okay? Everywhere. And what you do is you get a group of friends, you're in a session, they bring this thing out, and you have this little thing that, okay, so look, if somebody gives me a drink and there's a straw on it, and they hand it here, take a sip, I'm looking at that straw a little crazy, right? I don't know where your mouth's been, right? But here's what they're doing. They're passing this around, and they're inhaling everybody's bad breath and whatever else and stuff like that, and the cigarette smoke. I'm sorry I'm not with it, okay? But you rent a session, and it's about 200 puffs per session, which is the equivalent of about 100 cigarettes in one session. Now, are they going to go and do that every day? No. But now you have these young people still getting to what's socially acceptable, what's addictive substance, embedding in their mind, and those two things get people addicted, and that's where this comes in. So that's where our exposures come through. And if you don't think these companies know that, look at how they've been advertising for years. For every community, every African American community versus a white community, if you see one advertisement for cigarette smoking in a white community, you're going to see 10 of them in the African American community. And I put this over the years because this is a wide range of ages here, and every one of us has seen one of these through our ages, and it's look how they promote it, okay? And now this is not like happen circumstance. This is targeted advertising that these companies know, because now they know the new thing is vaping. And if you read down at the bottom, they say, okay, they're going to discover upcoming techniques for targeting for the advertisement of these substances. And it's done extremely well. You'll see it everywhere, okay? Relax. No smoking, just relax. No, relax and get cancer, okay? Vaporize. Right? Yeah, this is cool, because now this person, you keep sucking this stuff in and out from your mouth to your nose, you get nasal cancer and whatever else. Got you. Okay. All right. Got you. So, yeah, we know where we're going with this. Okay. Yeah, something wrong with it. Yeah. So we used to not know, right? We didn't have the data on whether or not there was a link between cancer and smoking marijuana. We now know. And we know that if you are a heavy user of marijuana in this study, that you have a twofold chance of developing lung cancer in your life. So then the question comes, what was a heavy user in this study? Okay. It was 50 times in a lifetime. All right, so those that said ain't nothing wrong with it. I didn't say 50 times in a week, because I got some patients there that can get 50 times in a week. This is where it is here. Okay. All right, so keep that in mind. I'm being, I got to keep moving. All right, so healthcare, and the biggest thing here is there opportunities for early detection and system factors, because now we know these exposures and how they're impacting, but the only way that we can get ahead of lung cancer is if we can detect it early. And if we can detect it early, then we have the opportunity of improving the survivals. The problem is our early diagnosis. If we take whites in the dark blue and African Americans in the light blue, we're less likely to get diagnosed early. Okay, we're less likely to get curative surgery when you have something that's curable, less likely to receive any treatment, less likely to survive 5 years of that. So that gives us an important part of this is to get screened. If you are a high-risk person, you know you need to get screened. And basically with screening, we're trying to detect lung cancer before it has caused the problems. And by detecting lung cancer, in the middle of the lung, this little cancer that's going to grow, there are no nerve fibers. So it gets a head start because you don't know it's there. We want to find it then when you have a 25% less chance of dying of lung cancer because you have it. Okay? Waiting for the symptoms, yeah, if you get the symptoms, then usually it's late stage, right? And that would be, you have the cough that doesn't go away, you're coughing up blood, you have weight loss, you have arm or back pain. Now, if you already have these symptoms, you need to go to your primary care doctor and get checked, but waiting for the symptoms, it's usually late stage disease. So, who needs to get screened? Well, if you're between the ages of 50 and 80, okay? If you smoke at least a 20-pack year smoking history. So what that means, if I smoke 1 pack a day for 20 years, that's 20 pack years. I smoke 2 packs a day for 10 years, that's 20 pack years. If you're that or above, you qualify for screening. Okay? And that's what I'd recommend. Because in the United States, we're not doing a very good job across the board, and especially in Georgia down here. Here's the national average for screening those people that we know should be screened, and we're not doing a good job of it. Only 4.5% of people are being screened that should be screened. Okay? And what that translates to is finding disease at a later stage when it's already spread versus finding at an early stage. And if you look at whites versus blacks, you're going to see that whites are more likely to find it early. Oh, am I done? Than finding it late. I'm going to keep moving just in case. Okay. So finding it early does make a difference, but not just finding it early. But remember, I talked about that time where this time frame where things actually double. Okay. That doubling time is extremely important. So if you get the diagnosis, you have to move. You have to get through your healthcare system, get it staged, and get the treatment started, because these cancers can move very fast. For that non-small cancer, the doubling time, the time from when I have my 4 cells to go to 8 cells, or 8 cells to go to 16 cells, that's about 60 to 90 days. So for that person who has a diagnosis that says, oh, I'm going to go get a second opinion, and this is going to take another appointment, another date, and whatever else, right? You only got about 2 or 3 months before you had that teaspoon size. Now you got 2 teaspoon size worth of cancer, and eventually it's going to spread. Okay. So that doubling time is important. Don't delay on getting things treated. Surgery for that, for the non-small cell, is the best stage, best treatment if you can find it early. If not, there's chemotherapy and radiation. But keep in mind what I said, African Americans are less likely to get the curative surgery. I gotta keep moving. Okay. Right, and who's less likely when they have a, wait, hold on. No, I'm just gonna, so women, who's less likely to have surgery when they have something treatable? Yes, black men, definitely. Huge difference. All the other races are well ahead of it. All the other sexes are ahead, but black men, you have a diagnosis of lung cancer and you have opportunity for surgery, you need to get that done, okay? Small cell, again, that doubling time, 1 month. 1 month. When I have a patient I diagnose with small cell cancer, we're going to move through that treatment and get them done, because before you know it, that thing is, a walnut size is now 2 walnut sizes. It is the most aggressive. Only about 5 to 10% of people are still alive in 5 years when they have it. If you have the extensive stage, even with treatment, you may only live 6 months to a year, and only 10% of people who are diagnosed and have treatment are still alive in 2 years. This is the aggressive one. Okay. It has the 2 stages, limited and extensive. Chemotherapy or radiation is the primary treatment, but there are now new treatments, immunotherapy, biomarker treatments. Rapid, I've got you, okay. That actually give the opportunity for better survivals. Okay, I'm going to go pretty quick because I need to be wrapping it up. Okay. All right. So these clinical trials, what are they looking at? They're looking at biomarkers. These are proteins and other stuff that are expressed by cancers that help the cancer either grow, thrive, generate its blood supply, or spread. And if we can find these genes, these mutations on the cancers that cause it, to help it live, then the treatments are to give treatments to attack those and stop it. You're basically cutting off its supply to travel and spread. And if you think of what we know in the past year, about year and a half, is there's about 35 new drugs that have less toxic side effects than chemotherapy and radiation and give better survivals than usual chemotherapy. The problem is only about 14% of African Americans are getting this biomarker testing, despite compared to 20% of whites. So if you know somebody that has a diagnosis of lung cancer, they need to get ask about biomarker testing. And the only way that we can get this information, or that you might be able to get treatment available that's not readily available, is clinical trials. A lot of times we don't realize that some of these clinical trials can actually help us figure out what treatments work best for us. And for those people that might be underinsured, if you're enrolled in a clinical trial, you might have the opportunity to get treatment you wouldn't otherwise get, okay? And that may help extend your life. So I'm gonna give some take-home points because I'm about 5 minutes late on giving my 5-minute wrap-up. Okay, so if I'm gonna say anything, I gotta talk about prevention, okay? This is a study from 2022. They're looking at middle school kids, okay, that are using some sort of tobacco product, and it's about 5%. Usually the electronic cigarettes, because they can hide it from their parents. Look, the girls are worse than the boys in this one, right? But here's the thing. Where do they learn it? You cannot tell your kid that smoking is bad if, thank you, okay. Remember the screening criteria, okay? And if you fit in that criteria, don't be ashamed, because screening saves lives. Go ask about it. If you know someone, get them screened, Okay, and remember, clinical trials, only about 6% of African Americans are in these clinical trials versus 83% of whites. That means that the information that comes out is geared towards them and not towards us. We need to participate in these trials so we can get treatment that's equal across the board. And ask about biomarker testing. I talked about that. You don't need, I'll just run these through because I'm a little bit over, but it's covered by insurance policies, and it will and can potentially offer you treatments that might be more beneficial in survival and less likely to give you bad side effects. Okay. All right. And with that, thank you.